After 10 years of dating, I was finally about to marry my CEO girlfriend. But then, her assistant photoshopped me out of our wedding photo and replaced me with himself, boldly projecting it on the big screen. Her friends immediately burst into laughter and teasing. This version looks so much more pleasing. I never realized Angelica and Joseph look so much like a married couple. Cut it out. Charles is such a jealous guy, he might totally lose it. I just gave a faint response. Yeah, they do look like a couple. Turning my head to look at Angelica, I realized she hadn't even heard what I said. What I saw was her looking at that edited wedding photo with unmistakable shyness and affection in her eyes. I let out a cold chuckle and walked out of the stifling hall. Then, I dialed a number I hadn't called in a long time. My father. Old man, I agree to the arranged marriage you set up. Chapter 1. When I hung up, Angelica's call came through. Charles, can you stop being so dramatic? We're getting married and the groom is missing. Even if you're mad about the photo, Joseph already apologized. What more do you want from him? I could only smile bitterly. She didn't even notice when I left the hall. Not that surprising. Her eyes had long been filled with Joseph. There hadn't been room for me in her gaze for a while now. Joseph explained it. His mom is seriously ill and just wanted to see him married. He only edited our wedding photo to make her happy. Can't you be a bit more understanding? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. When it came to Joseph, Angelica always expected me to be the bigger person. When Joseph ruined a project I'd worked hard to close, she told me to be mature about it. Now Joseph sabotaged our wedding, and she still wants me to be mature. The truth is, she simply didn't care about the things I cared about. I'm ordering you to come back right now. We still have an important client dinner after the wedding. And with that, she hung up. Angelica was mad. Normally, whenever she got angry and gave me orders, I'd always go running to please her. But not this time. I didn't want to obey her anymore. Just then, my father sent over the address for the arranged date. As I clicked it, a message from Joseph popped up. He sent a photo, Angelica, in the wedding dress I had picked for her, pressing her chest tightly against Joseph's arm, gazing at him with affection, and a text message. Charles, you're lucky, your wife's body is a real blessing. Don't thank me, just doing you a favor by breaking her in. Oh, and by the way, I prefer the right one. Seems a bit uneven now. After the wedding, make sure you squeeze the left more. Even through the screen, I could feel Joseph's smugness. If this had happened before, I probably would have stormed back into the hall and punched him in the face. But now, I felt nothing. The only thing I thought was, my hand felt dirty after holding Angelica's today. This wasn't the first time Joseph provoked me like this. So the wedding photo incident, I didn't need to guess, of course it was his idea. And yet Angelica always believed him without question. Even when I showed her Joseph's messages, she would pretend not to see. Instead, she'd scold me, can you just grow up and stop making a scene? The ringtone pulled me out of my thoughts. I had already answered the call without realizing. Angelica's furious voice screamed through the line. Charles, what did you say to Joseph? He said he was going to convince you to come back, but now he's crying alone. I couldn't help but laugh. Angelica, you can keep defending Joseph. You can keep blaming everything on me. I won't fight anymore, because I don't care anymore. This relationship ends here. Whatever he said, just take it as truth. Also, I'm not coming back. And with that, I hung up. I raised my hand and stopped a taxi. Following the address my old man gave me, I went to meet the woman he had arranged for me, Selena. She was petite and delicate in appearance, but her first words surprised me with their poise and composure. Charles, from what I understand, you're about to get married. So why are you sneaking off to a blind date behind your fiancé's back? I was racking my brain trying to figure out how to explain. When Angelica's name popped up on my screen again, I was about to decline the call, but Selena suddenly said, "It's okay, Charles, you can take the call." I glanced at her, then down at my phone, where Angelica's name still hadn't been changed from the affectionate nickname I used to call her. Bracing myself, I answered, "Charles, are you trying to humiliate me on purpose today? I've told you 1,000 times, Joseph is just my assistant. There's nothing between us. It's just a wedding. If you're so hung up on it, I can throw you another one." Stop being so ungrateful. Even without speakerphone, Angelica's voice was so loud that people nearby began turning to stare at me. We'd been together for 10 years. For 10 years, she held the power over whether or not we got married. And now, I no longer cared about it at all. That won't be necessary. I wish you and Joseph an everlasting love. I hung up and let out a long breath, just about to explain things to Selena, only to meet her gaze, a sly and amused smile playing at the corners of her lips. No need to explain. Charles, I'm quite satisfied with you. I've cleared my afternoon schedule. Let's go get the marriage certificate first. Chapter 2. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, I sent a photo of our marriage certificate to my old man. He immediately transferred me a large sum of money, telling me to throw a grand and impressive wedding. Just as I turned around, I saw Selena fiddling with her phone. Curious, I leaned over and saw that she had posted our couple photo and the picture of the marriage certificate online. She was now busy replying to comments from her friends in the comment section. A natural, joyful smile spread across her face, so genuine it left me momentarily dazed. I pulled out my phone, intending to see what she was saying, but I quickly realized we didn't have any mutual friends. The only interaction I could see was my father giving the post a like. Instead, I accidentally came across a tweet from Joseph. It was a video of him and Angelica continuing with the wedding. The caption read, "Got married outta nowhere, wild day, folks." In the video, Angelica walked through the ceremony beaming with happiness, confidently declaring, "I do." I used to think that if I ever saw this scene, I would be overwhelmed with heartbreak, maybe even cry my eyes out. But now, I felt nothing, just calm. Angelica gave Joseph's tweet a big like. Employees from our company flooded the comment section with congratulations. I always knew CEO Angelica and assistant Joseph were the real deal. My ship finally sailed. Right. Unlike Charles, Angelica's a graceful white swan. Did anyone seriously think a toad like him could hold onto her? Neither of them issued any clarification or denial. From the very beginning of our relationship, Angelica never let me post anything official or public about us. Once, I secretly posted a photo of us together. She immediately jumped in to clarify things in the comments and later ordered me to delete it. Back then, I thought she just didn't want her private life out in the open. But now I see the truth, she simply didn't love me. While Selena was off changing into a wedding gown, I received a call from the hotel manager. He told me that Angelica had contacted him, saying she wanted to proceed with the wedding and even asked to add 4 more banquet tables. Joseph's family and friends would be attending too. Since I had been handling all the wedding arrangements myself, the cost of adding more tables would push the budget beyond what I originally planned. So the manager called to confirm. "No need," I said. "Cancel the booking." There was a pause on the other end. "Also, please help me reserve your most premium wedding package. I'll come by later to finalize the details." After hanging up, I turned to see Selena, now back in her gown, dressed in pure white. She looked like an angel who had somehow wandered down to earth. When she walked up to me, I was momentarily stunned. She reached for my hand, lifted her skirt with the other, and excitedly dragged me toward the photo studio. She radiated a warm, glowing energy. On the way, we accidentally bumped into someone. I moved quickly to help them up, only to hear a sharp voice call my name. "Charles." I looked closely. It was Angelica's best friend. She stared at me, then at Selena, and suddenly shouted in disbelief, "You bastard, I knew it. When you disappeared halfway through the wedding, it was because you ran off with your side chick. How could you do this to Angelica, after she stood by your side for all these years and was about to marry you?" None of Angelica's friends were decent people. 10 years ago, when I had just started dating Angelica, they came at me in a pack, waving her name around to get me to spend money on them to please her. And when they found out I had fallen out with my family, they jumped at the chance to convince her to leave me. After Joseph showed up, no one jumped higher on the bandwagon than the woman standing in front of me right now. So, I saw no reason to keep tolerating any of them. I let out a cold laugh and shot back. "Since all of you were rooting for Angelica and Joseph to be together, and now they've had their wedding, just don't come bothering me anymore. And be sure to pass along my blessing. May they live happily ever after. Also, this lady beside me is my fiancée, not a side chick. Keep talking trash, and I'll rip that tongue out of your mouth." With that, I ignored her screeching and turned to lead a slightly stunned Selena away. The wedding photo shoot went smoothly. Even though Selena had to change into several different outfits, she genuinely enjoyed the whole process. I couldn't help but recall the time I did a wedding shoot with Angelica. We'd booked a full 4-outfit session, but after just one look, she got impatient, canceled the shoot, and rushed off to meet Joseph for a date. I shook my head and pushed the thought away. I had already decided to embrace this arranged marriage. The past should be left cleanly behind. After escorting Selena home, I said goodbye and turned back to Angelica's place to pack my things. To my surprise, the passcode lock stopped me at the door. After a few failed attempts, the door finally opened from the inside. And standing there was Joseph, wearing my oversized shorts, my couple's slippers with Angelica, and with damp hair that looked freshly washed. When he saw me, a knowing smirk curled on his lips. "Charles, you're finally back. Wasn't the code your anniversary date with Angelica?" She was worried I'd feel left out, so she changed it to our anniversary instead. "You probably don't know the date." Here, let me show you." He stepped to the side, conveniently making way for me to enter. I ignored him and walked straight into the apartment. Only then did he close the door and follow me in, like he couldn't rest easy unless I beat him up first. Apparently, Angelica had heard the door shut, because she stepped out of the bathroom, wearing nothing but a bath towel. "Joseph, didn't I tell you to grab me a pair of panties from the bedroom?" She was mid-sentence when she saw me. Her entire face stiffened, visibly flustered. "Charles, Joseph and I were just at a business dinner nearby. He just came up to rest a little. Nothing happened. Don't get the wrong idea. Their relationship was practically written all over the walls at this point. There wasn't any more room left for misunderstanding. Her underwear had been hidden in a tucked-away part of the wardrobe, and her casually given instruction to Joseph, clearly not the first time she'd asked him to do that. An assistant who fetches panties for a female CEO, anyone with half a brain knows what kind of assistant that really is. Sure, no misunderstanding. A flicker of sarcasm flashed in Angelica's eyes as she straightened up, assuming her usual haughty tone. Charles, what kind of attitude is that? My best friend already told me, you hired some actress this afternoon to take wedding photos with you. You're just trying to get under my skin, aren't you? Well, I guess now I've made you uncomfortable too. That makes us even. But don't forget, you ruined my wedding today and made Joseph cry. Now, apologize to him right now. It was always like this, no matter who was right or wrong. I was always the one who had to apologize to Joseph in the end. At first, I resisted. I'd bring out evidence, argue with Angelica. But all she ever gave me in return was that same look of disappointment, asking me when I was finally going to grow up. Every time I saw that disappointed expression, I'd be overwhelmed by an irrational sense of inferiority, anxiety gnawing at me, because I was afraid she would leave me. But all that ever got me was more and more shameless behavior from her and Joseph. Peering over Angelica's shoulder, I clearly saw inside the bedroom. Clothes both of them had worn during the day were carelessly scattered all over. Angelica's bra and panties hung from the bedside lamp, and a torn pair of stockings lay crumpled by the bed. I let out a cold, joyless laugh. Sorry, did I interrupt your honeymoon suite? Angelica, we're done. Chapter 3. Angelica stared at me in disbelief, her eyes wide. What do you mean it's over? You're breaking up with me? I looked straight into her eyes and repeated slowly, word by word, Angelica, we're done. Did you hear that clearly this time? This time. I was certain she heard every syllable, because she froze on the spot. Joseph stepped forward, putting on that fake, self-pitying act of his. Charles, it's my fault. I insisted Angelica let me rest here after our business dinner. I didn't mean to hurt your relationship. If I'd known, I would have just grabbed a cab and napped on the way home. I was speechless at how two-faced Joseph could be. But before I could say anything, Angelica snapped at him first. Shut up. Joseph clearly hadn't expected the fire to hit him first. He immediately shrank back. Charles, I know you're upset about today. Tomorrow, I'll throw you another wedding. I promise. Nothing will go wrong this time. Let me deal with Joseph. It won't affect the ceremony tomorrow. With that, she turned and hurried back inside to get dressed, then dragged Joseph out the door. Left alone in the now quiet apartment, I let out a soft sigh. After packing all my things, I stepped out of the apartment where Angelica and I had lived together for 10 years. I didn't look back once, not even a little nostalgic. After all, tomorrow, my wedding with Selena would go ahead as planned. And from that moment on, Angelica and I would become nothing more than two parallel lines, never to cross again. Maybe it was the anticipation, but I woke up early the next morning. After picking up Selena and checking her into her hotel suite, she headed upstairs to get ready for the ceremony. Meanwhile, I stood at the entrance of the hall, greeting guests alongside my father. Most of the attendees were business associates of my father and Selena's grandfather. Very few were actually my friends. Not that I had many to begin with. Selena's friends did show up, though, whether by her request or not, they were all exceptionally warm and friendly toward me. Everything went smoothly, by the book. Once most of the guests had arrived, the ceremony began. Standing at the center of the stage, I suddenly felt a wave of nervousness wash over me. But as Selena's grandfather walked her down the aisle, step by step, her smiling face blurred behind the veil, I slowly calmed down. When he placed her hand into mine with deliberate weight, I felt a new kind of heaviness settle into my palm, a responsibility I hadn't known before. We followed the ceremony sequence. I lifted Selena's veil, we recited our vows, and prepared to exchange rings. But just as I was about to slide the ring onto Selena's finger, the doors of the hall slammed open. Charles, it's our wedding day, why didn't you come pick me up? What the hell is this supposed to mean? Chapter 4. I turned around to see Angelica storming into the hall in a wedding dress. Behind her were her parents, Joseph, and a whole group of her extended family and friends. The hotel manager was trying his best to block them, but he couldn't stop the crowd. He was soon pushed aside and left scrambling. Looking embarrassed, he hurried over to me to explain. Apparently, when I asked him to change the wedding hall, he didn't realize the bride would also be different, so he had informed Angelica about the venue change. It wasn't until I confirmed the wedding details with him later that he realized there had been a huge misunderstanding. I waved it off. It wasn't entirely his fault. My father stood up from his seat below the stage, silently asking what was going on with his eyes. I gave him a small gesture that said, "I'll handle it." Just as I turned to apologize to Selena, I caught the look she gave her parents, a silent signal of reassurance. Then she turned back to me and gave me a firm, steady gaze. I couldn't help but think, if it were Angelica standing here right now, she'd already be yelling at me without a second thought. I took a deep breath and turned to face Angelica again. Before I could say a word, she shoved past security and stormed up to me, then slapped me across the face. "Charles, have you made enough of a scene yet? Didn't we already settle everything yesterday? I told you it wouldn't affect today's wedding, so what the hell is this supposed to be?" Most of the people present were elders, my father's business associates, so I couldn't lose my temper. I simply said in a cold tone, "I was pretty clear yesterday too." "We're." Angelica immediately cut me off. Right. You said you wanted to break up. Just another one of your little power games. Right. So now you hire an actress to fake a wedding with you. I've seen this woman before, she was the one doing that photo shoot with you the other day, wasn't she? Before I could respond, Joseph jumped in. Exactly. Angelica saw right through your stunt. Charles, no need to keep pretending, though I gotta say, these extras you hired look expensive, you really went all out. Then he turned to Selena, continuing his provocation. And you, little lady, come on. I know times are tough, but that doesn't mean you should take every gig. I mean, this is a fake wedding. What if your groom turns out to be a creep who drags you off to a fake honeymoon? That'd be a real loss. That was it. I saw red. Enough. I forced myself to suppress the fury burning inside me, for the sake of everyone watching. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out my and Selena's marriage certificate, and unfolded it right in front of Angelica. Look carefully, Angelica. It's over between us. And let me formally introduce her to you. This is my wife, Selena. Chapter 5. As Angelica stood there in a daze, Selena tiptoed and kissed me on the cheek. I hadn't expected her to do that, but I kept a calm face, showing no surprise on the surface. I glanced at my watch. It was about time. So I took Selena's hand and began walking toward the ceremony. Our wedding was about to begin. As I passed Angelica, she seemed to finally snap out of it and suddenly grabbed the corner of my jacket. "Charles, this is all fake, right? You love me so much, there's no way you'd just leave me and marry someone else." I looked over at Selena with an apologetic glance, but she simply returned a look that said, "It's okay." Then I turned to Angelica and spoke with a voice devoid of emotion. "Angelica, yes, I did love you, very much, but that's in the past. My wedding is starting, and my bride is waiting. Please, have some dignity, for your own sake." Still, Angelica clung tightly to my jacket, shouting hysterically, "No, absolutely not. Back when you cut ties with your family, I was the one who stayed with you through it all. Tell me, what exactly did I ever do wrong to you?" I couldn't help but laugh, not out of joy, but out of disbelief. "You stood by me. Do you even hear yourself say that? Do you want me to publicly list all the shady things going on between you and Joseph before you finally admit it?" She stood up straighter, suddenly full of righteousness, and snapped back at me. "Then go on, tell me what could possibly be going on between me and Joseph. I've told you 1,000 times, he's just my assistant. You're the one who's always been irrationally jealous." Angelica actually seemed to believe she'd hidden things so well. If I hadn't caught the flicker of guilt flash across Joseph's face, I might have doubted my own memory too. At that moment, I was grateful that someone had interrupted me the other day before I could block Joseph. Otherwise, all his smug and provocative messages would have been wiped out with the rest. I sneered and pulled out my phone, only for Joseph to suddenly lunge forward and grab my wrist. "Charles, come on. Even CEO Angelica says there's nothing going on. If she says that, she's got a clear conscience, right? I'm just a broke assistant. Someone like Angelica, how could she ever be interested in me? Besides, I'm a coward. Even if I wanted to do something, I'd never dare." I laughed. So much for being partners in crime, they weren't even on the same page. I gave Selena a glance. She immediately understood and stepped back a few paces. Then I drew my arm back and slapped Joseph across the face, hard. Smack. The crisp sound echoed through the hall, freezing the air for a moment. Joseph collapsed to the floor, clutching his face in stunned disbelief. "Ah." Angelica gasped and hurried over to check on him. "Joseph, are you okay? Are you hurt?" "Charles, what gives you the right to hit someone?" Selena handed me a wet wipe. As I wiped my hands, I looked down at the two of them with utter contempt. "Angelica, you barged into my wedding, saying I'm marrying the wrong person. You swear there's nothing between you and this guy, but when something happens to him, you're the one who rushes to him first, who panics the most. Don't you think that's a bit ridiculous?" With every sentence I spoke, Angelica's expression twisted even more, until finally, she stood up as if she'd suddenly figured it all out, and shouted at me. "Fine, I admit it, I do like Joseph, but how does that conflict with me loving you? I have so much love to give. Can't I spare a little for someone else too?" Chapter 6. For a moment, I was actually choked by her words. When I first found out about Angelica and Joseph, I just thought I had misjudged her character, but now, I started to wonder if I had been completely blind. We had been in love for 10 years, and I had never realized that Angelica's logic was this twisted. But Charles is just an ordinary person. He gives love with all his heart, so naturally, he expects wholehearted love in return. Selena suddenly spoke, pulling my drifting thoughts back into focus. I turned to her with a grateful look, and she responded with a faint smile. I let out a long breath and then said to Angelica, "That's right. It's your freedom." I couldn't accept it, so we ended things. From now on, whoever you want to love, however many people you want to love, it has nothing to do with me. But Angelica still wouldn't give up. "But I love you the most." "Yes, I like Joseph, but nothing ever happened between us. I never betrayed you. If there were a God's eye view, it would definitely catch me rolling my eyes all the way to heaven right now." I'd reached my limit, so I picked up my phone. Joseph, in a panic, tried to stop me, but I didn't give him the chance. I pulled up the chat history with Joseph and laid out all the photos and videos he had sent me right in front of Angelica. Angelica's expression shifted from confusion, to shame, to fury. "Impossible. These are fake. Charles, how dare you fake this just to break up with me and slander me?" But her tone grew weaker and weaker until she finally turned and kicked Joseph hard. "Joseph, didn't I tell you never to let anyone know about us? How dare you send those directly to Charles?" Joseph, seemingly ready to let everything burn, clutched the spot where she had kicked him and struggled to get up. His face twisted in rage as he yelled at Angelica. "So what if I sent them? That bastard is nothing but a coward. He saw the messages I sent and didn't even dare say a damn word." Angelica was briefly stunned, clearly shocked by Joseph's sudden betrayal, but I had no interest in watching their drama unfold any further. "If you two want to argue, take it somewhere else. Don't keep disturbing my wedding." With that, I turned to walk back into the chapel. But just then, Angelica's mother suddenly rushed up to me and grabbed my hand. "No way. Today, you either marry my daughter Angelica, or you pay back every penny she spent on you over the past 10 years. Angelica's father quickly chimed in. "Exactly. You're a useless parasite. You mooched off my daughter for 10 years. She wasted all her youth on you. Pay up." I nearly burst out laughing. Seeing Angelica had no intention of stopping her parents, I calmly asked, "So how much do you two think I owe?" Angelica's mother, thinking she had a chance, hastily held up 3 fingers and was about to speak. Angelica's father quickly blocked her and held up 5 fingers, shouting first, "5 million. You lived off my daughter's money and resources, $500,000 a year for 10 years. That's 5 million. Sounds fair, right?" Looking at the shameless greed on their faces, I simply gave a cold smile. "Fair? Fair, my ass. Angelica's company was started with the 1 million yuan I brought from my family. I am the company's biggest shareholder, but for the past 10 years, I've only taken a basic salary based on my role. That salary also had to cover daily expenses for both me and Angelica. As a shareholder, I trusted Angelica completely and let her manage all the dividends. But now I have to ask, where did all that money go?" Chapter 7. Angelica jolted slightly upon hearing those words and hurried toward me. "Charles, my parents were talking nonsense. I never agreed to break up with you. Why are we even talking about money?" I didn't let her finish. I cut her off immediately. "That's enough, Angelica. Our breakup is already a settled fact. As for the money, I wasn't planning to fuss about it. But what I can't accept, what I'll never forgive, is that you used my money to buy Joseph a house." Angelica protested emotionally. "What are you talking about, Charles? That house was meant to be our marital home. You always said that once we got married, you wanted a real home of our own. So I wanted to surprise you. That's why I bought it." The look I gave Angelica was like watching a hopeless clown, and my voice was completely devoid of emotion. "Even now, you're still taking me for a fool." Angelica fell silent. The truth was, she knew exactly what she had done, but she always assumed I wouldn't do anything, banking on the fact that I loved her. She acted with impunity, but none of that mattered anymore. My wedding was about to begin, and I was stepping into a new life. As I turned away, a sudden thought crossed my mind. I looked back and said coldly, "Maybe I used to be a coward, thinking that if I backed down, everything would work out in the end. But now, I don't think that way anymore. The more I backed down, the more you pushed. So now, I'm taking back everything I lost." Then I turned and walked into the wedding hall. My wedding with Selena went smoothly. During the banquet, I drank quite a bit. The old man sitting below the stage glared at me every time he looked up, as if he wanted to kick me to death. I knew exactly what he was thinking, worried that I'd drink too much to perform later, and mess up his chances of becoming a grandfather. But Selena stayed by my side the whole time, quietly and warmly smiling, until we were escorted into our wedding suite. In a hazy state, I heard Selena's soft voice comforting me. "You've had a rough time all these years." And then I buried my head in her lap and cried my heart out. The next morning, I woke up to find my suit still on and Selena sleeping beside me. leaning against the headboard. A wave of guilt surged in my chest, but at the same time, a small sense of relief crept in, relief that I had agreed to this marriage arranged by the old man. After we visited Selina's family, the whole marriage ordeal was finally complete. Next, it was time to settle the debts. With the legal team sent by the old man, I went to Angelica's company. Angelica was in her office, clearly distressed, because Joseph had vanished. Apparently, after they left my wedding that day, Joseph packed up some valuables and project documents and ran. Among the valuables was the property deed to the house Angelica bought for him. When Angelica saw me, her first instinct was to order me around. As usual, it wasn't until she saw the people behind me that she realized why I had come. "Charles, you told me not to cause a scene at your wedding, and I didn't. Do you really have to disregard everything we shared over the past 10 years? I had always been the largest shareholder of Angelica's company. That fact had never changed. Over the past 10 years, she had diluted her own shares multiple times for the sake of the company's growth, but never once touched mine. But that wasn't out of any lingering affection between us. It was simply because even though those shares were mine, she controlled them. I had always followed her lead without question. She was the tyrant of the company, and by diluting her own stake, she also avoided public criticism. But the men she thought would never leave her had finally been pushed to the other side. Chapter 8. I decided to restructure and rebuild Angelica's company entirely. Naturally, there would no longer be a place for her. When Angelica heard the news, it was as if she had found a last lifeline. She dropped to her knees in front of me, pleading, "Charles, you still want this company because it holds our memories together, right? Please think about our past. Can't you let me stay? It's okay that you're married. I can be your mistress. I know so many tricks now. I'll be good. Not like Joseph. I'll keep it a secret. I won't let your wife find out." Okay, Charles. Up until today, even though Angelica and I had become strangers, I never imagined there'd come a day when she would utterly disgust me like this. Suppressing the repulsion rising in my chest, I spoke calmly. "If you could prove your ability to manage the company, maybe, just maybe, you'd still have a chance. But now, that chance is gone. The old man, my father-in-law, is a pure businessman. Acquiring Angelica's company was, in his eyes, a move of perfect timing and opportunity. That's why he was willing to support me. To be fair, getting the company to its current value did take some skill on Angelica's part, in addition to my backing. From a purely profit-driven standpoint, perhaps the old man might have let her continue running the company. Unfortunately for her, he witnessed her outrageous behavior at my wedding. He didn't step in to stop it, not because he didn't care, but because he wanted her, her family, and Joseph to make a complete fool of themselves in public. He let them put on a full-blown farce, just like clowns on a stage. But I have no doubt he's already mentally labeled Angelica as unstable, a liability, and no one in their right mind would entrust their business to a lunatic. After leaving a professional team in charge at the company, I headed out to pick up Selina. Coincidentally, I ran into Angelica, who was leaving the company with a box in her arms. I rolled down the window and gave her one last reminder. "Like I said before, I will hold you fully accountable for using my credit card without permission. You better find Joseph, or you'll be the one taking the fall for this." Angelica gifting Joseph a house was, legally, just a donation, but the card she used was mine. If I press charges for unauthorized use of my bank card, she's the only one who would end up in jail. But I didn't want Joseph to get off that easily. And sure enough, when people are in crisis, their motivation skyrockets. Just 2 days later, Angelica messaged me to say she had found Joseph. Turns out, he was hiding out in the very house Angelica had bought for him. When we found him, he had just called over an in-home massage therapist. Angelica nearly exploded on the spot at the sight. She had bought that house in hopes of playing the role of a sugar mommy in disguise, a modern-day golden cage for her men. But she never imagined Joseph only cared about her money. He was even using her money to enjoy the company of other women. Furious, Angelica rushed forward to confront him. But Joseph, now seeing her as nothing but a nuisance, wasn't about to be polite anymore. Once a sugar mama runs out of money, she's worth less than a stray dog. Joseph hurled insults at Angelica in every possible way, wearing down her pride and driving her to the brink of madness. Though perhaps she still had a shred of reason left. After all, she only ended up brawling with Joseph, and it was the massage therapist who called the police. Both of them, bruised and swollen, were hauled away by the cops. The message I received came from Angelica after the officers were preparing to release them. She finally got her phone back and reached out. But even after sending the message, she couldn't hold back her rage. She got into another fight with Joseph right outside the police station. So the two of them were dragged right back inside, again. That's when I arrived at the station. The moment Joseph saw me, his first instinct was to bolt. Maybe the slap I gave him at the wedding had left a mark, not just on his face, but in his memory. He'd learned the hard way what happens when a nice guy finally snaps. What I don't know is if the beatings Angelica gave him left him traumatized about women too. During this second round of questioning, Angelica finally came clean about Joseph absconding with company funds. The police took it seriously, and upon further investigation, it turned out Joseph was a seasoned con artist. With that charming face and a silver tongue honed over years, he had drifted between major cities scamming women left and right. In the past, he had always been cautious, never letting husbands or boyfriends find out. But with Angelica, he was bold. She protected him at every turn, even going so far as to attack me for his sake. And back then, my blind love for her made Joseph believe he could defecate on my head and still get away with it. But instead, it all spiraled into the worst possible outcome for him. Joseph had already contacted a real estate agent and was planning to disappear as soon as the house was sold. He didn't expect Angelica to track him down and get him thrown in jail. What he really didn't see coming was that the agent he contacted happened to know a sales rep in that very neighborhood. That rep, worried he might get dragged into the fraud case because of the stolen card used to buy the house, kept an eye on the property's status. When he heard the house was going on the market, he immediately informed Angelica of the details. That's how Angelica managed to corner Joseph in the house. In the end, Joseph was arrested for fraud and slapped with handcuffs. By the time he gets out, it'll be at least 10 years from now. The house was recovered and returned to Angelica. She sold it at a reduced price, covered the difference herself, and respectfully returned my credit card. Only then did I agree not to press charges. After that, I cut all contact with Angelica. The next time I even heard her name was about 6 months later. Selena, now pregnant, had grown bored of staying home every day, so I took her with me to check on the newly restructured company that once belonged to Angelica. An old employee from Angelica's time told me that someone from the past had left a message for me. Before she could say another word, I raised my hand and stopped her. Seeing her frustrated expression, I wondered just how much of Angelica's version of the story was pure fabrication. But none of that mattered anymore. I gently placed my hand on Selena's belly. Since they are a figure of the past, they should stay honestly in the memories, because the new person has already stepped forward and will never look back.